What's the Science Universal family on another glorious day of the science of living mathematics? Today, I want to cover 2 degrees. Reason being, yesterday, as you can see all above with my plants, taking care of my plants and stuff, and I couldn't do this video for yesterday on the degree of understanding, the 3rd day of the month. So today we're going to cover 2, yesterday and today. Why I want to do that and not just skip over it, because I think every degree is important, and being able to extract whatever you can out of each jewel I think is important for me, and because I think it's important to me, I want to be able to share that with you guys. So yesterday's degree, and it sounds weird because we never build on the past or anything like that, but yesterday's degree was understanding. All right, the 3rd day of the month. Understanding is comprehension, is to be familiar, to know the inner workings of a system, know how the cogs turn and function and all that. Because to know something is to, oh, I know what that is, but understanding is to know the purpose, reasoning, why it does what it does, right? And your 3rd letter in the alphabet is what? C. And C in the supreme alphabet stands to see with your eyes, because there's a difference. Because many times we look at things, but we don't see it clearly. It is that point when someone's building with you and you finally come to that understanding and you go, oh, I see, I get it. Get what I mean? That's what that means. So how do we break that down? How do you apply understanding as the 3rd principle of the universal order of things? All right, because the first one is to do the knowledge. Look, listen, observe, and respect. Then wisdom is to put that idea into motion. Once you put it into motion, you walk your path, your journey per se, and you come back home, or back to the beginning. Let's say back to your source, which is you. You begin to look how these things function. You look at those ideas that you first came up with, that spark, and you put it into this motion. Now you're just looking at what worked, what didn't work. It is these small steps that lead to evolution in the sense of in the mind, because you learn to apply things a little bit different. I was building with one of my ALIKes yesterday, and one of the things he said, and it's why that's my brother, my ALIKe, because we see things very similar. And being able to have perspective, being able to have this clear understanding, a clear mental picture, is to look at something and be able to see around it as well, based on what you know, based on your experience, looking at this a specific object or event, and not only just look at the surface level, right, but seeing what's behind and deducing, okay, this is what in my mind it would look like. Being able to project yourself beyond the now, if you get what I'm saying. And being able to see is to see the picture in your mind as well. There's plenty of things that we don't understand that we come upon through our journey, and being able to finally see it in your mind, so that way you can go home and think about it. Just sit back and just see it in your mind. Let it play. It's like the processing power of a computer. We have a lot of people nowadays I would just go on the internet and Google search a lot of things, but don't take the time to process this information, and they just go with what makes sense to them, or if this information agrees with their established way of thinking. You get what I mean? And we tend to do this because, again, we like to surround ourselves with things that are agreeable, but something that will completely demolish your bubble that you're in, this reality that you created. It's is really disturbing per se. We have to be able to look at things in this manner with the lens of understanding that at the moment we don't know everything. And what I mean is individually. And something that you think you have a firm grasp on could be based off false information. Not in a sinister way, in the sense of like you just build lies around. It could just be lies that were spread to you that you believed in a long time. To some, it could be like nowadays talking about that the world is round or the world is flat, all these things. It could be about just religion or anything like that. And being able to have perspective, that understanding, to be able to see clearly and apply based on your own self, not your cultural influence, your religious influence, societal influence. Being able to grab what you know, what you have experienced, and develop this understanding for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And many people are afraid to do that themselves because they're afraid of being cast out by their friends and their family, the society, community, whatsoever. And you have to do what's best for you, because do you want to be the same as those that came before you, in the sense of like no progression whatsoever? You just want, if your predecessors had attained this specific level, and after everything you have done, you have not progressed at all. I'm not even going to talk about you regressing, just nothing at all. No mental evolution, no physical growth, or nothing. Have you really progressed? Or you have been stagnant this whole time? So you have to be able to think for yourself, not for others. Think for yourself in the sense of like, how do you see it? This is one of the things that in my way of life, my culture, we ask, how do you see it? Well, when we're talking about anything, it could be, about anything. How do you see it? Why? Because I ask, because I want to know. How did you arrive to that understanding? How did you arrive to that conclusion? Because we all have different perspectives. I don't care what anybody tells me. How I see something is not the same as you. It could possibly be that we all can look at things very similar, or even some cases the same, but not by force, not by an outside influence. We can pretend that we do, to fit in a specific social structure, but we all have our own ways of seeing things based on our experiences. We could have had similar upbringing, but it doesn't mean you and I see it exactly the same. You can't force understanding. You can force compliance. But to be able to see, that ability to see comes from you alone, and nobody else can tell you. You, again, like I say, you can go ahead and pretend. Right? And this goes in alignment with today's mathematics, which is the 4th day of the month, and that is culture or freedom. Culture is your way of life, right? Because 2 is action. 2 is something that you do, you're putting it into motion. And if it's something that you consistently do all the time, it becomes a part of you. It becomes like the back of your hand. It is second nature. It becomes your way of life. right? And freedom is not the ability to do what you want, when you want, or how you want. It is not to be constrained, free from struggle, free from others from stopping you to progress. You know what I'm saying? Well, you can't do this, you can't do that. For example, I could go ahead and rob a bank, but that doesn't mean that's what I want to do. Why would I want to create so much heat, bring so much heat towards me? All right, so that's how you got to think about it. It's like, oh, this is a land of the free. You could do whatever you want. No, you can't. There are certain rules in place, and there are certain universal laws that are in place. And how I taught my son when he was young is to learn and understand the rules, why they're put in place, before you try to break them. On some young shit. You know what I mean? Before you try to bend the rules, break them. See why that's in place. And apply this to your way of life each and every day. So that way you can gain greater understanding. And make it part of your way of life to gain greater knowledge, greater experience. To be able to grow, be able to do things in a much efficient way, and passes on to your kids or to anybody if you don't have any kids. The fourth letter in the alphabet is D. And in the supreme alphabet, D stands for divine or destroy. Divine is that which belongs to God, the highest form, right? The supreme being. To destroy is to break something apart, to remove something, not always in a violent manner. I know we tend to use the word destroy to represent something very destructive, violently, you know, and that's not always the case, because while your way of life belongs to you, you are divine, you are God, but our God in the same way, because God is the supreme being. Supreme means the most high, the highest level, and being means to exist. So the highest form of existence is you. Are you living up to your fullest potential? And if not, work on those things where you're not living your way of life based on your lower self. And what I mean by that is your bodily desires, in a sense, where these desires dictate how you live your life. You know, many of us have trouble with being able to, let's say, not eat, in the sense of constantly eating. Then you want to lose weight, but you build all these bad habits. Some of us have lust. Others have anger issues. Others have attachment issues, addicting behaviors, which is a big one. And only you can determine what way of life you want to live. What culture do you want to live? And if that's the case, you have to be able to know what it is that you want. But just because you want it doesn't mean that you don't have to work for it. Maybe you are not ready for this lifestyle that you set up for yourself. So, like I was building the other day, you set small attainable goals to get to that point. Because remember, what way of life is all the small little things that we do in between. You know, people keep saying culture is food and all that, but how about the cooking part? How about the growing part of that eating, right? We always look at, let's say, for example, the end results, the flowers, how beautiful they are. But the major part of that way of life of, let's say, somebody who's a flower lover is the growing part. You know what I mean? Preparing the soil, knowing and understanding the seasons, the conditions to have these flowers bloom, these fruits and vegetables, and then be able to know how to prepare it into a meal. You know, that divineness that is you will always apply things that is relatable to you, and things that are an anathema to you, you will destroy. You will remove from you, because little by little these things will weigh you down. You want to be able to not be influenced by other things that are not conducive to your growth and development. And again, first you think about it. You have the spark, you plan it out, you put that into motion, you get back home, back to your base, and you make adjustments, whatever necessary changes. And then the fourth, you apply it to yourself and be able to repeat that again. And that way now this journey becomes less treacherous until you progress to new territories whatsoever. But now you take this understanding and apply it to self, and understand that this freedom many times is hindered by you, by the conditions placed upon you as a child growing up, conditions that you place upon yourself. So many times we tend to point the fingers outside of ourselves about not being able to have the freedom to do this and the freedom to do that. But many times we fail to look at the freedom that we don't allow ourselves. And why is that? Why is that? You know, trauma, family history with your friends, you know, things that are very hurtful, and we put in the back of our minds, and we stop to do certain things. You know, I'm not sure it's relatable, but I remember watching that movie of Dracula. I think it's like a remake, and this whole time the myth is that, you know, how vampires cannot step into the sunlight. And this movie talks about how Dracula, it's not that he's will melt or whatever it is, or vaporize from the sunlight. He just never wanted to see the light of day because he was ashamed of some of the things that he did in the past, and it became a traumatic experience that over the centuries it was, let's say, exaggerated to say, oh, you know, vampires cannot step into the sunlight because they'll die, you know. And that could be something that could happen to us. You know, we have to be able to unlock these restraints that we put on ourselves to be able to move forward. You know, not that I'm a big fan of the military or anything like that, because I know a lot of people that are in the military, and the conditions that they put you in, the things that they say, I don't agree with. But I do understand of the whole breaking you down. Because when they break you down, you're breaking all these social constructs, and all you have left is you. And that is the most powerful source. They might not do it for that specific reason, because they just want soldiers that don't ask no questions. Only yes, sir, right? And they want robots. But if you go through that, and you're just broken down to your most raw you, like I'm always talking about, you know, the you when taking a shower, when you're shaving or anything like that, it's just you. When you're the furthest away from society's influence, this is the real power of you. By you attaching all these other things, you know, got your social media account, got a specific image that you gotta do, you gotta have your videos a specific way, you gotta use certain filters because, you know, you don't like the way you look, all these things. If you remove all that and just go based on the real you. You have power. This power that comes from within you, and only way to attain that is to look at the way you live. Look at the way you carry yourself on a daily basis, moment to moment, the decisions you make and why you make them. Right? Same thing as you greet somebody and this person doesn't greet you back, or they are very rude per se. Maybe they went through some shit, whatever that is. But those decisions of whether you're the person receiving the rudeness or you're the person giving the rudeness, right? Determine what type of person that is, in the sense of, why would I take that, my anger or my frustrations on somebody who doesn't deserve, somebody who's just like, hey. But if you're on the receiving end, it's like, this is the type of person he is or she is, and you have to be able to make those adjustments. But always remember that your way of life is determined by you, the small little steps that you constantly take. Right now you might be going straight, then you might take this left turn, and then a right turn, and then right, left, you know what I mean? All these different things was based on you, and you got to look at this pattern. So that way you can free yourself, free your mind, free your dome. So that way you can free the dumb and destroy that which is not divine, that which it's not of you. It's something that is foreign. And I'm always telling you guys, always look within, because that's what's most important. You and the universe is one and the same. I said this on the Knowledge Day, the first. You and the universe is one and the same, just in different shapes, different forms, performing different functions for different reasons. You have to be able to determine that reason and apply it, live it out each and every day, each and every way. So if you like these videos, I can continue doing them. Please subscribe and like them, right, on my YouTube channel of The Science of Living Mathematics. All right, so with that, I say peace and enjoy the rest of the day on this glorious day of The Science of Living Mathematics.